Hello, and welcome to this episode of Frankie's Cultural Observations. Today, we're going to be analysing hipsters. About 10 years ago, society ran out of new, fun, and interesting ways to make fun of hipsters, which makes this analysis trickier than I originally thought it was going to be. The criticisms of hipsters in the media became so stale and saturated that making jokes about hipsters almost became as hacky as the hipsters themselves. I said hacky, not hackney.
Yeah.
We're not going to your warehouse, you white devil. That was crunchy. In more recent years, hipsters have begun to dress like construction workers to blend in / seek the approval of the men who overpriced their parents with a marble patio in their family garden. And due to the revolving nature of fashion, these hipsters secured the checkered overshirt from the charity shop and blew the cobwebs off their Carhartt to reappropriate hiking gear on flat surfaces, because the only mountain they'll ever have to climb is the mountain of being 35 years old and still having housemates. Before we can offer an analysis on the hipster, first we must discover the cultural evolution of this historical disease. Hipsters usually began as weekend warriors, Monday to Friday philosophy students and part-time baristas on the weekend, fighting for their life every single week, battling against the worst of humankind. Sports mums who ask for an extra hot latte and then complain to the manager when the froth burns the roof of their mouth. This traumatic experience of having to deal with people who don't really get coffee split the hipsters into two factions. Many, as a response to their subordinate status, became snooty, salted caramel, self-entitled Spotify playlists you've never heard of. Sardonic theatre energy kids who act like they're doing you a favour by giving you a brief but ultimately unsolicited rundown of their avant-garde art film. As these hipsters age, many of them outgrew their cynicism to become wholesome elder millennial parents who bring their toddlers to music festivals, and the others became alcoholic art teachers who stare the void square in the face every time they look in the mirror. Hipsters put themselves on a pedestal to speak out and stand up, to get noticed for how humble and undeserving they are. By becoming the self-appointed, patronising saint of the oppressed, and having all the correct opinions in the pre-packaged starter pack, it becomes difficult for hipsters to realise that they are not the marginalised, they are the margarine.
That sounds very funny.
Time for a chewing gum. Wrigley's. However, the other side of the hipster horizon became obsessed with Western Marxism to soothe the lingering feeling of guilt that they may be the oppressor after all. This strand of hipster became focused on identity formation rather than economic conditions. With no real plan to change anything in a significant way, they became performative activists, giving a voice to the voiceless on behalf of the voiceless without asking their permission, because they don't actually know any voiceless people in real life other than the help who did the catering at their parents' get-together every summer. And they weren't actually voiceless, they just weren't allowed to speak. Many people think hipsters have been frozen in 2013 or choked on one of those annoying little neckties they used to wear around their t-shirt. But the opposite is true. Hipsters have become so common that we see them everywhere. Like an old piece of furniture in your home that you forgot about until it gets pointed out by a guest. I'm the guest, you're the furniture. Furniture that feels like it can't make a real change against the structures that hold it up. Furniture that focuses on fair trade coffee stains all over it, natural wines it pretends to enjoy, and obscure jazz vinyl records to distract itself from the weathering weight of a crippling mental health crisis. Being ethical and socially conscious in our limited consumer choices is the only form of freedom we have left. We've all become hipsters.
Yeah, I think you're you're totally right. Where I'm from in Germany, I'm not from Berlin, but especially like Berlin, a big hipster culture who are actually the people with a lot of money and are actually the ones driving poorer people out of areas like that here. So it's a big problem in Berlin, and it's like your punchline you said before. They are not the oppressed, or they are not the smaller minority. They are actually the majority of people who live in these gentrified areas. Yeah, I would not consider myself someone like that ever, because the Berlin hipster scene, for example, in Germany, it's just crazy, and it's filled with money. There's a lot of money in there, and a lot of vintage stores and everything, and big chains taking over everything. So yeah.
So I can't believe it's not butter.
No, it's not butter at all.
It's definitely not butter at all.
It's not butter at all.
Hold this for a sec.
Sure.
Thank you. Can you hold this for a sec?